Do you, Tiana Adeyemi, take this man? She wanted to scream no. To run. But her father's trembling hands clasped hers, whispering a plea she couldn't ignore. I do, she whispered. And do you, Mr. Jeon RenJun, take this woman? A long pause. Then a low, smooth, dangerous voice. I do. The first time she heard him speak. The tone was familiar, too familiar, but her mind didn't catch it yet. By the power vested in me, you may lift the bride's veil. Her breath caught. His fingers brushed the fabric, slow and deliberate. Time stopped. Her heart froze. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't a stranger. It was him. The boy who mocked her accent, laughed at her mistakes, and once poured juice in her hair. Now taller, sharper, and more dangerous. The boyishness was gone, replaced by a cold elegance she barely recognized. If you're just tuning into the channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story as we dive right in. Tiana sat by the window, her chin resting on her palm as the city flashed by, neon lights bleeding into the gray sky, people rushing through the rain with perfect faces and lives that seemed faster than hers would ever be. Sometimes she wondered why she was still here in Korea. Maybe because running has never solved anything. Not the bullying, not the shame, not the fear that clung to her like a second skin. Her father, well, the man who adopted her, had done everything to make her feel at home. But she still felt like an outsider in her own life. He treated her kindly, gave her everything she needed, and never once made her feel unwanted. Yet she could never bring herself to tell him what really happened at school. When she came home with bruises or a split lip, she'd smile through it. I fell, she'd say, or, I cut myself by mistake. He would frown, worry in his eyes, and she'd quickly look away before he could ask more. It was easier that way, easier to hide the pain than to add it to his. Now at 22 she should have been free. But freedom felt like a word she'd only read about. Her life was a quiet battle, classes that drained her, nights that stretched too long, and a mind that wouldn't let her rest. Sometimes she still hears their voices in her head. The laughter. The whispers. Foreigner. Ugly. Weird girl. No matter how much time passed, those words still lived under her skin. A reminder that some wounds never healed, they just learned how to hide better. She took a deep breath, pressing her trembling fingers against her temple. Just another day, she whispered to herself. By the time she reached her small apartment, the city had begun to drizzle. The cold air hit her face, sharp as reality. Her phone buzzed the moment she pushed the door open. Her heart skipped. He rarely called. And when he did, it was never good news. She hesitated, then swiped to answer. Daddy. Tiana. His voice came low, heavy, as though he'd aged a decade overnight. She froze. What happened? There was silence. She could hear his uneven breathing through the static. Tiana, I made a mistake. A big one. Her chest tightened. What kind of mistake? I borrowed money. From people I shouldn't have. I thought I could fix things before you found out, but... Borrowed? From who? She cut in, her voice rising. From a bank. He laughed bitterly. If it were a bank, I wouldn't be this scared. The room suddenly felt smaller. Dad, please don't tell me you're saying... The Jeon family, he whispered. The Jeon syndicate. Her breath caught. Everyone in Korea had heard that name. The Jeon Mafia ran half the city's underworld. Drugs, weapons, underground trade, even politicians whispered around them. And her father owed them money? Dad, no, she said, her voice breaking. Tell me you didn't. I had no choice, Tiana, he shouted suddenly. The company was collapsing, your tuition fees, your mother's medication. I was drowning. They offered me help, I took it, I thought I could pay it back. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles pale. How much? Silence. How much do you owe them? She demanded. Enough to get us all killed. Her body went cold. Tiana, he said softly, they came to see me today. She could hear her pulse in her ears. Who? The heir. The boss's son. He said there's another way to settle the debt. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What way? Her father hesitated, and in that pause she knew, whatever he was about to say would destroy her. He wants to marry you. The world stopped. Tiana blinked, her lips parting, but no sound came. What? He said if you agree to marry him, the debt is gone. Just like that. They'll spare the business, the house, everything. Her heart pounded so loud she thought she'd faint. Dad, are you insane? You want me to marry some criminal? Tiana. No. You can't be serious. You think I'll just, give myself to a mafia man like I'm some kind of... Enough, her father snapped, his voice cracking. You think I want this? You think I'm proud of it? I failed you, Tiana. I failed all of us. But this is the only way to keep you safe. Safe, she whispered. From who, Dad? From him. He didn't answer. Her throat tightened as tears stung her eyes. No. I won't do it. Tiana, listen to me. No. I don't care if we lose the business. I don't care if we go broke. It's not about the business, he shouted. They'll kill us if you refuse. The silence that followed was suffocating. Only her ragged breathing filled the space. Tiana. Her father's voice broke again, smaller this time. He gave me 3 days to give him your answer. She sank to the floor, clutching her knees. The walls seemed to close in, her heart thundering. She had run from her fears all her life. The bullies, the pain, the voices in her head. But this time there was no escape. You said he's the heir, she whispered shakily. What's he like? Her father sighed. Cold. The kind of man people don't say no to. He barely spoke, just stared at me like I was already dead. Tiana's breath trembled. She hung up soon after, unable to listen anymore. The phone slipped from her hand as she buried her face in her palms. Outside, the rain turned violent, tapping hard against the window like an omen. She sat there for hours, numb, still, broken. Memories of high school flashed through her mind. Laughter behind her back, cruel words scribbled on her locker, a pair of mocking eyes watching her cry. She'd promised herself never to let anyone own her again. Never to let anyone have that power. And now fate wanted her to marry it. The next day she tried to convince herself it was all a nightmare. But when her father called again, his tone left no doubt. They'll come for you if you refuse, he said quietly. They know where you live. Her hands trembled so hard she dropped her mug, shattering it on the floor. Daddy, please don't make me do this, she whispered. Tiana. His voice cracked. Sometimes love looks like cruelty. If this is the price to keep you alive, I'll pay it, even if you hate me for the rest of my life. Tiana bit her lip to stop herself from sobbing. When the call ended, she stared out the window again, at the city that never noticed her. The drizzle had stopped, but the clouds hung low, heavy and gray. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, dark circles, the face of a girl who once dreamed of freedom. Marry him, she whispered bitterly to herself. And what then? You stop being human. But even as she said it, she knew she didn't have a choice. Because when the Jeon family made an offer, saying no wasn't survival. It was suicide. Her phone had rung at dawn. The call was short. Get ready, a man's cold voice said. The ceremony's at noon. That was all. No sympathy, no explanation. Just a command. By the time they came for her, she was already dressed. Not in white but in ivory, a color that looked too soft for the kind of marriage she was walking into. The gown hugged her body delicately, embroidered with crystals that shimmered under every breath of light. A silk veil covered her face, heavy and suffocating. She wondered if that was intentional, to hide her fear or to hide her tears. 2 black cars waited outside her apartment. No one spoke during the drive. The men wore dark suits, their faces expressionless. She could feel their eyes through the tinted glass, through the silence that pressed down on her chest. She clenched her fists on her lap, trying to control her breathing. It's just a dream, she told herself. Wake up. But every turn of the car, every faint hum of the city, every passing second reminded her that it was all real. They stopped in front of a massive marble building. Not a church, not a hall, but something between both. It gleamed with wealth, gold accents glimmering under the late morning sun. Men in black suits guarded every corner, their hands resting on concealed weapons. Inside it smelled of roses and money. Soft orchestral music played as she was led down the aisle. The guests, maybe 30 or 40 at most, sat in neat rows, their eyes curious, pitying or cold. No one smiled. Her father stood near the altar, his shoulders trembling beneath his suit. He tried to look strong, but when their eyes met, guilt flooded his face. She wanted to run to him to beg him one last time to stop this, but her legs wouldn't move on their own. Her steps echoed, light but heavy in meaning. Each one felt like a nail being driven into a coffin. Hers. She couldn't see the groom's face. He stood at the altar, tall and silent, back turned to her. The air around him felt sharp. She could feel it, the weight of power, danger, authority. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. When she reached him, she barely heard the priest's voice. Everything was muffled, like she was underwater. "Do you, Tiana Adeyemi, take this man?" She wanted to scream no. She wanted to run. But her father's shaking hands clasped hers briefly from behind, whispering a plea she couldn't ignore. "I do," she said softly, her voice trembling. "And do you, Mr. Jeon RenJun, take this woman?" There was a pause, a long one. The kind that stretched too far. She heard him inhale, steady and slow. Then a low voice replied, deep and smooth with a hint of something dangerous. "I do." It was the first time she heard him speak. Something about that tone felt familiar. Too familiar. But her mind didn't connect the pieces yet. "By the power vested in me," the priest continued, "you may now lift the bride's veil." Her breath caught. She felt his fingers touch the fabric. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted the veil. Light hit her face. And then time stopped. Her heart froze. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't a stranger standing before her. It was him. The boy who used to laugh when she mispronounced Korean words. The boy who mimicked her accent in front of the class until everyone joined in. The boy who once poured juice over her hair and called it shampoo for foreigners. Now he stood before her as a man, taller, sharper, more dangerous. The boyishness was gone, replaced by a cold elegance that didn't belong to the same human she once feared. His jawline was sharp, his hair slicked back perfectly, his black suit cut with precision. There was something cruel about how beautiful he'd become. His eyes, those same eyes that used to mock her, held no trace of remorse. Only recognition. And a faint smirk. "Long time no see, princess." The words cut deeper than any blade. Her lips parted but nothing came out. Her throat burned. He tilted his head slightly, watching her with a mix of amusement and something unreadable. She could see the satisfaction in his eyes. The kind a predator has when the prey realizes it's trapped. The guests began to applaud softly, the sound fading into the background. Tiana couldn't hear anything anymore. Not the music. Not the priest. Just the echo of his voice and her own heartbeat roaring in her ears. Her knees felt weak. She stumbled slightly, but he caught her. Not gently, not kindly, just firmly enough to keep her from falling. "Careful," he murmured, voice close to her ear. "Wouldn't want my bride fainting on the floor, would we?" She jerked her hand away, breathing unevenly. Why you?" His smirk deepened. "Fate has a sense of humor, don't you think?" Tiana's eyes blurred with tears. Every cell in her body screamed to run, to escape, to tear the veil apart and disappear. But she couldn't. Not in front of these people. Not with her father watching in shame. The ceremony ended in a haze. Rings exchanged. Papers signed. Her soul felt like it was being sold off piece by piece. Then came the flash of cameras, the murmurs of congratulations, the weight of his hand on the small of her back as they walked down the aisle together. Every step beside him felt like betrayal, of her past, her dignity, her peace. When they finally reached the car waiting outside, the crowd parted. She caught a glimpse of her father, eyes red, lips trembling. He mouthed something that looked like "forgive me." But she couldn't. Not yet. Maybe never. Inside the car, silence filled the space again. The scent of his cologne, cold, expensive, painfully familiar, suffocated her. She turned her face away, wiping at her tears. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. RenJun chuckled lowly, resting his arm on the window. "You'll find out soon enough, princess." "Don't call me that," she snapped, voice cracking. He turned to her, eyes glinting. "Why not? Used to hate it back then too." Her breath hitched. He leaned closer, close enough for her to see the faint scar near his lip. A new addition, one that somehow made him even more dangerous looking. "Funny, isn't it?" he murmured. "All those years you ran from me, and now you're mine." Tiana's tears spilled freely then. She turned away, shoulders shaking silently. He watched her for a moment, and then, to her shock, his hand reached out. 2 fingers brushed her cheek, wiping away a tear that had escaped. The gesture should have been gentle. It wasn't. His touch lingered just a second too long, enough to make her flinch. He smiled faintly, that same cruel smirk from years ago. "There," he said softly. "Wouldn't want to ruin your makeup." Her breath caught again, not from the words but from the way he said them. Come. Like this was all just the beginning of a game he already knew he'd win. The car moved, the city outside a blur of lights. And as Tiana stared out the window, silent tears streaking down her cheeks, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't just revenge. This was only the beginning. Her chest rose and fell, anger burning hotter beneath her ribs. "You can cage me, RenJun, but don't think I'll start bowing." He leaned forward slightly, voice dropping low. "You bowed the moment you said I do." The words hit like a slap. For a moment neither spoke. Only the distant sound of rain against the window filled the silence. Then unexpectedly he stood up. "Finish your food," he said quietly. "I'll have your things moved to the east wing. Stay there. Don't wander." Tiana frowned. "You really think I'm going to sit here all day like some obedient?" His gaze snapped back to her, sharp enough to slice through the rest of her words. "Don't test me," he warned softly. "You're not ready for the kind of world you've stepped into." She swallowed hard. There was something in his tone, something more dangerous than anger. It was a promise. He left the room without another word, his footsteps fading into silence. For a long time Tiana sat there staring at the untouched food. Her pulse was still racing. Her body was still trembling, not from fear, but from rage. He hated him. Every calm breath he took, every command he gave, every way he reminded her that her life was no longer hers. But there was something else. Something she couldn't name. Because sometimes when he spoke there was a pause before his words. A hesitation. Like he was fighting with something inside him. So she wasn't stupid. A man like RenJun didn't hesitate for nothing. She glanced toward the hallway where he disappeared, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who are you really, John RenJun?" RenJun stood by the window, hands buried in his pockets, his eyes fixed on the city lights flickering below. His brother stood behind him, pacing restlessly. "We're getting close, Ren," his brother said, voice tight with frustration. "I just spoke to the private investigator. They still haven't found anything about Dad's death. I know I've messed up before, but I'm being careful this time. You have to trust me." RenJun exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. The last time he trusted his brother, it nearly cost them everything. His brother had always been reckless, parties, women, drugs, and it took a stint in rehab to wake him up. Now he was sober, determined, but still unpredictable. RenJun finally turned to face him. "Thanks for the update. If you find anything else, call me first. And also," his tone hardened, "the Oliver Tiger gang is already on my watch list. Don't take any chances. Move with more guards." His brother nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah, I know. The annoying part is, we still don't know who the leader is. Only his assistant shows up. Whoever he is, he's a ghost." RenJun's brows furrowed. That single truth gnawed at him every night. A faceless leader, a trail gone cold, and a father's death with no justice. "That's what bothers me the most," RenJun murmured, his gaze drifting back to the window. "Ghosts don't stay hidden forever." RenJun slipped into Tiana's room after midnight. The lamp by the desk threw a pale pool of light across the bed and he stopped at the doorway, watching her breathe. She looked smaller somehow in sleep, lashes fanned against her cheeks, a slow rise and fall that should have eased him. But his hands knotted, fingers worrying the hem of his shirt as guilt knifed through him. He stepped closer and cupped her hand in his palm, feeling the quick little thrum of her pulse. And for a second the room narrowed to that heat between them while his mind ran through every half-formed apology, every plan to erase what had been done. Tiana's eyes opened and the first thing she registered was his reflection in the mirror. RenJun lounging against the dresser, arms crossed, his pajama top gaping just enough to outline his abs. Her breath hitched. Her body answered before her head did, but then she scanned herself as if checking whether he'd taken anything, clothes, dignity, and rose to her feet like a coiled spring. "Can you just stop barging into my room? This is the 4th time," she snapped, fists curling at her sides. "It's my house, ma'am. I can do whatever I want," RenJun said lazily, his voice low but sharp enough to make her clench her fists. Tiana took a step closer, anger flickering across her face like a flame ready to burn him alive. You, she raised her hand ready to slap him again, but his next words froze her mid-motion. If you slap me, he drawled, leaning slightly against the table, we'll be having our first honeymoon right here. Her hand trembled in the air before slowly dropping. What a weird thing to say, Ren, she hissed, her voice tight with both fury and disbelief. I hate you so much. He chuckled softly, the sound deep and mocking as she turned to leave. I have a gift for you, princess, he called after her, amusement dripping from every word. She spun halfway, her glare sharp enough to cut. F you and your stupid gifts. RenJun only smiled wider, his tone teasing yet possessive. Okay then, Mrs. Jeon RenJun. Tiana whipped around fully this time. I'm Tiana, she snapped. Not in my world, he murmured, smirking as her jaw tightened before she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The house grew quieter once RenJun left, as though even the walls relaxed in his absence. The guards shifted positions, the maids whispered less. But Tiana couldn't. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She rose from the table and wandered through the corridor, trying to memorize every hallway, every exit. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood, the kind of scent that clung to power and old money. Every painting was an heirloom, ancestors staring down like silent witnesses. She turned a corner, and nearly collided with someone. Oh, sorry, she muttered quickly, stepping back. The man smiled, easy and warm, nothing like RenJun's cold precision. You must be Tiana, he said. My sister-in-law, I presume? Tiana blinked. The resemblance was there, sharp jaw, dark eyes, but softer, younger. His hair was a lighter shade, his tone casual, almost playful. And you are? She asked warily. RenJun, he said, extending a hand. Jeon RenJun. The brother who didn't inherit the empire or the attitude. She hesitated, then took his hand. It was surprisingly warm. I didn't know RenJun had a brother, she said. He chuckled, eyes glinting. He rarely mentions me. He likes keeping people in tidy boxes and I never fit into his. There was something charming about him, the kind of man who could make anyone feel safe just by smiling. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely. So, he said, studying her. You're the woman everyone's whispering about. Whispering? Of course. The mysterious wife who appeared out of nowhere. They say RenJun didn't even tell his board about the wedding. You must have done something remarkable to make him rush into it. Tiana's lips tightened. You talk a lot for someone I just met. He raised his hands, laughing lightly. Fair enough. I meant no offense. 'Tis curious. My brother isn't exactly known for sentimentality. Neither am I. That earned her a genuine laugh. I like you, he said, eyes sparkling. Maybe you'll finally make him human again. Tiana tilted her head, studying him. You sound like you don't like him very much. RenJun shrugged, casual, almost dismissive. Like, oh, but he's my brother. We coexist. Anyway, welcome to the family, Tiana. If you ever need someone who isn't made of ice, you know where to find me. Tiana ignored him the entire day after the wedding. She barely looked at him, barely spoke. When night came, she refused dinner and locked herself in the bedroom. The sound of his knocking came again, steady, persistent, but she sat still, pretending not to hear. Her gaze dropped to her wrist, the faint scar that still lingered there. The mark from years ago. The one her bullies left her with. It stung more tonight than it had in months. She blinked hard, fighting the tears threatening to fall. Tiana, his voice came through the door, low but firm. Her chest tightened. The door creaked open. He was already inside. She shot up from the bed, fists clenching at her sides, anger flashing in her eyes. Get out, she snapped, her voice trembling more from pain than rage. He didn't stop. Each step he took brought him closer. The air between them grew heavy. Her breath hitched. How could you do this to me? She burst out, her voice breaking. Do you even know what I went through? Because of those bullies, I've had an open wound on my wrist for years. I still cover it with makeup every single day so my father won't see. Her voice cracked as the tears finally spilled. She wiped them roughly, hating that he could see her like this. He said nothing, not a single word. His silence was louder than anything he could have said. He just kept walking toward her, slow and unshaken, eyes unreadable. Tiana's breath quickened. She stepped back, one shaky step after another, until her back hit the wall. The cold surface pressed against her spine. He stopped right in front of her, and for a moment neither of them moved, just the sound of their breathing filling the space between them. "Your food is getting cold," he said softly as this annoyed her, and then she slapped him hard, but his face didn't turn, it just remained looking at her. "Your food is getting cold," he said quietly, his tone calm, almost too calm. The sound of his voice only made her blood boil. Before she even realized it, her palm cracked across his cheek, a sharp slap that echoed through the room. He didn't flinch. His head didn't even turn. He just stood there staring straight at her, his expression unreadable. "Your food will be brought to you," he said finally, voice steady, almost gentle. "Make sure you eat, and get some sleep." That was all. No anger, no defense, just that infuriating calm. Tiana's hands trembled. She wanted to slap him again, to scream, to break something. But instead she turned her face away, avoiding his gaze. She hated how he looked at her, like he could see through every layer she tried to hide behind. He sighed quietly, then turned his back to her and started walking toward the door. His steps were slow, heavy. There were things he wanted to say, apologies maybe, but the words stuck in his throat. For now he could only watch her from a distance. Her voice cut through the silence, sharp and bitter. "So what now? After all this nonsense, what's your plan? Introduce me to all your loser friends." He stopped but didn't turn. "It would be nice of you," he said calmly, "if you showed some respect when mentioning my friends." You and your friends," she shouted, her chest rising and falling. "I swear I'll make your life hell if you don't release me from this stupid marriage." That made him turn. Fully. Their eyes locked, anger against anger. Neither backed down. For a moment, it was pure fire between them. Then he laughed, a low, dark laugh that filled the room and made her stomach twist. "You'll have to kill me first, Tiana," he said coldly. And with that he walked out. The door slammed shut. Tiana's knees gave out. She sank to the floor, tears spilling freely now. Her phone kept buzzing, her father's name flashing again and again, but she didn't answer. She couldn't. He was the reason she was trapped in this nightmare. So she sat there on the cold floor, sobbing quietly, feeling the weight of everything pressed down on her. The fear, the anger, and the heartbreak she couldn't escape. The mansion looked like a palace carved out of marble and silence. Every wall gleamed, every step echoed, every corner watched. Tiana moved through it like an unwanted painting, beautiful but misplaced. Guards lined the hallways, standing stiff in their black suits. She could feel their eyes on her, following her every move as if she might explode at any moment. The air smelled of jasmine and money, a scent that made her chest tighten. She stopped in front of a massive glass window overlooking the gardens. The place was breathtaking, but there was no warmth in it, only cold perfection. Even the flowers looked arranged by command, not care. Behind her, footsteps sounded, measured, deliberate. She didn't need to turn to know it was him. His presence filled the room before his voice did. "You're up early." Tiana rolled her eyes, her reflection faintly visible in the glass. "It's hard to sleep when you're guarded like a prisoner." He came to stand beside her, tall, composed, dressed in a perfectly tailored black shirt that hugged the muscle underneath. The faint cologne from last night still lingered, rich and dangerously intoxicating. "You're not a prisoner," he said coolly. "You're my wife." She let out a small laugh. "Right. The decorative kind. The one that comes with a leash." RenJun turned his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Careful with that tongue, princess. I told you not to call me that." He smiled faintly, the corner of his mouth twitching. "And I told you I don't take orders." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Then I guess we're both prisoners." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement maybe, or pity. It was gone too fast to tell. "Breakfast is ready," he said simply, stepping away. "Try not to be late again. The staff are terrified of upsetting you." "I'm sure they're terrified of upsetting you, not me." He didn't deny it. Tiana followed him to the dining room, her bare feet brushing against the thick Persian carpet. The table was long enough to seat 20, yet only 2 plates were set, his and hers. Silver cutlery, porcelain dishes, food that looked too perfect to touch. He sat at the head of the table, she sat across from him. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint clink of his fork against the plate. She stared at him for a while, watching how composed he was. Every movement measured, every glance calm. It irritated her. How could someone who ruined her life look so unbothered? Finally she spoke. So, what's the point of this marriage, really? Because I know it's not love. RenJun didn't look up. It's business. Business. She let out a sharp breath. You married me for business. He finally looked at her then, eyes as dark as obsidian. You're smart enough to understand the world doesn't revolve around love, Tiana. This union keeps the Jeon name stable, silences our rivals, and proves that I can tie myself to someone without emotion clouding judgment. Tiana's hands clenched. So I'm just proof? He leaned back slightly. You're proof that I can control chaos. She scoffed. Wow. Romantic. He gave her a small, humorless smile. You're safe here. Fed, clothed, protected. There are women out there who'd kill for that. Then let them have it, she shot back. Let them live in your golden prison. His fork stilled. His eyes met hers again, cold, sharp. You should learn when to stop talking. Without another word, he turned and walked away, footsteps light, careless, as if leaving a trail of indifference behind him. Tiana watched him go, a small smile tugging at her lips. Somehow she found herself liking him more than that so-called Ren. Had I been married to your brother, Ren, life would have been better, she muttered under her breath. Later they sat across from each other at the dining table. Tiana's eyes flamed with anger as she glared at him, arms folded across her chest, while he smirked, cutting through his food with an almost infuriating calm. You'd rather end up marrying a drug addict before dating, she said, the words sharp. My high school bully? Absolutely. Yes. My God, yes, RenJun, she shot back. Her words hit him harder than he let on, but he swallowed it, forcing his face into a mask of indifference. Changing the subject, he leaned back slightly. Do you like the Lamborghini? She shook her head. No. I'd rather you take me back home. He smirked, a spark in his eyes. Half of my assets will be registered under your name. Tiana blinked, caught off guard. I couldn't care less, Tiana snapped, eyes flashing. Because no matter what you do, it won't erase what you and your stupid friends did to me back then. It's a shame you think that could make me forgive you. RenJun's jaw tightened. His hands slammed onto the table, making her flinch. I'm not asking for your stupid forgiveness, he growled, voice low but sharp. I just want to make things right. Tiana stood, leaning forward, heat radiating from her anger. So it's true, you were psychopathic? Her words cut like knives. You're a madman who needs help. Is that true? That hit him like a spark to gunpowder. His eyes darkened, burning red with fury, and he yanked the nearest plate, hurling it toward her back. Food splattered across the wall with a sickening crack. Tiana froze, heart hammering, memories of high school rumors flashing in her mind. No wonder he had bullied her so mercilessly back then, so void of empathy. A gentle voice broke through her panic. Are you okay? She turned to see RenJun standing there, calm but concerned. Yes, she murmured, still trembling. Sit down. Let me get you a cup of water, he said softly. She nodded and lowered herself onto the chair. Within seconds he returned, setting the cup carefully in front of her. As she sipped, the tension slowly bled from her shoulders. They fell into a quiet conversation about RenJun's life, the small talk a fragile bridge between chaos and calm, giving her a brief reprieve from the storm that was RenJun. That night, rain poured hard against the mansion roof. Thunder rolled across the hills. Sleep refused to come, so she slipped out of bed, restless, drawn by the flicker of light coming from the study down the hall. She hesitated at first, then curiosity won. The heavy door was slightly ajar. Voices drifted out, low, sharp, dangerous. She leaned closer. He's losing control, a man's voice hissed. She recognized it, RenJun. Another voice, unfamiliar, older, replied, Careful what you say. He's still the boss. Not for long, RenJun whispered. He's obsessed with finding who killed our father. If he gets too close, I'm finished. You know who pulled that trigger, don't you? The other man went quiet. RenJun continued, voice trembling with fury. I was the one who made this empire stable after our father died. I cleaned the mess, silenced the traitors, and made sure RenJun looked like the rightful heir. But he's too blind to see that the real threat was inside all along. Tiana's hand flew to her mouth. He killed his father. Her pulse thundered in her ears. RenJun's tone dropped to a cold whisper. Once RenJun finds proof, he'll come for me. So I'll get to him first. Once he's gone, the board will have no choice but to hand me everything. I'll finish what I started.